Hey, welcome back. It's Andrew Hayes with the Alliance. The Alliance.live is the website. Thanks for coming on, and uh, this is the first time in a while I've had guest after guest. Hopefully, those have made it up. We had Bob Murphy, um, probably, and I'm not in any way overselling here to say that he's probably the sharpest economist of our generation. And then I had Stephen Kinsella, extraordinary legal mind. Uh, he's a interesting theorist, and then uh, the George, and I mess up on his last name, but George, and we talked about Herbert Spencer. So go back, catch episodes 1, 2, and 3. This is going to be episode 4. And there was we've had some stuff going on, some stuff in the news, and that's why I didn't want to get a guest for this show. I wanted to just kind of hit on the news a little bit, uh, the news, but some concepts, um, and even libertarians, not even libertarians, but especially libertarians, have come out and denounced the riots, uh, because what are you doing? You're breaking stuff, and you're damaging property, and you're hurting people. If that's not against libertarian principles, then what is, right? Um, but then there's this other guy. There's another guy, Thaddeus Russell, and he's a historian. Uh, I don't know what you'd call him. He's completely unorthodox. He pulls out the the history that's just completely contrary to what we think of. And I caught a piece from him, and I didn't get to read all of it because I don't have the money to subscribe to all kinds of different Substacks out there. But I got the idea, and he's not wrong. And I've read it myself in history, but it takes a historian like Thaddeus Russell to piece it all together and to make a theme, to show the theme in the history. And what he's talking about specifically, let me back up, is that libertarian came out, and he's a left-leaning libertarian. He's for open borders. I forget his name. He's the guy that debated Dave Smith a few weeks ago. Uh, Nars War, or anyway. Um, Sorry, but he came out. He's left libertarian. He's for open borders, pro-choice. He's that kind, um, and he said there's never any reason for a riot. Well, Thaddeus Russell, in his Substack, uh, he points out that starting with the Stamp Act in 1765, that there were riots. There was mass upheaval. That loyalists, lieutenant governors, tax collectors, that they were beaten, that their houses. I know that there were several leading up to the revolution. There were several governors' mansions that were burned to the ground. Uh, but he mentions in 1765 there was a stamp house, tax government office, and the mob hacked it to bits with axes, and that by the morning by the morning it was just a heap, that they tore down the house, uh, this government building. And so I've been kind of thinking on this and musing on this, that the these are the same guys that 10 and 12 years later would be fighting in the revolution. These are the patriots. Uh, so it's interesting. You can't. It's very difficult to. I don't know how you would, to set aside that violence, but then be okay with the violence of the Revolutionary War, because when a bunch of frankly rich people get together and put pen to paper, that legitimizes it. Um, what exactly? Where's the difference? Um, it's it's kind of an open question. I don't have an answer for you. Uh, I don't have an answer to that. But obviously, it should go without saying that it's a whole different deal for colonists who uh, are having taxes hoisted upon them from abroad, from London, would react that way to those policies. Contrast that to in a representative government where you have access to the ballot box, where you can vote, where you have redress, where you can go and see your legislature and your legislators and remonstrate and everything. There's there is a difference, and by the way, there's a huge difference in the people rioting in LA uh, compared to the uh, the Stamp Act. And I say that uh, I feel like there is, but in a way there is a sliver of there's some kind of thin continuity there that California didn't elect Trump. California overwhelmingly rejected Trump. They don't like Trump. They don't want his policies, and, and I think it's a huge misstep. Uh, I think it's a huge political misstep for Trump to go to LA and try to start deporting people in LA. I can't imagine why on God's green earth would he want to go to LA and fight that fight. He should go to a state like Oklahoma or Texas or Alabama, where the people love him and support him and will cooperate and work with him. Start with the easy project first. Take out the weakest link first. Get the immigrants out of get the illegals out of Texas, out of Oklahoma, out of the South. Then go into the border states where you won, but you didn't win by a lot. Go into Ohio and Pennsylvania. Uh, you know, uh, and California is just about a loss, guys. Um, they don't they don't want us there. Why are we spending? Why am I being taxed to fund a policy in California that the people in California don't want? That's what I have a hard time wrapping my head around. That except to say that the riots definitely turned the news cycle. They turned the news cycle. Um, And now nobody can even remember what was in the news right before the riots started. I don't know. Something about Elon Musk and the Epstein files, and that somebody was in the Epstein file, but I can't remember. I don't know. It was too long ago, and so we've all forgotten. And maybe maybe that is the reason why ICE went to LA. Um, maybe that's why. So so going back to the that line between unruly riots, uh, illegal unruly riots. I'm sure a lot of people would characterize the riots in 1765 against the Stamp Act. They would categorize them that way. Um, really criminal, illegal, uh, and then a just and some would even say holy revolution in 1776. Um, and I'm trying to weave this together. And I'm going to go and talk about some really wild stuff right here. That mentioned that California didn't vote for Trump, and the vote. People don't understand this. I don't think they get it, but the vote is violence. Uh, Perhaps not all the time, but a lot of the time. Uh, I dabble in etymology. I like words, and tracing back how a word has changed or its meaning has changed. And as it turns out, bullet and ballot are cognate. One comes in through French. I think that's bullet, and then the bola comes in from Italian, but they go back to the same cognate of where you get the word ball. Ball, bullet, ballot, they're all cognate. Uh, and that ought not be lost on people that a vote is violence when there's a vote to regulate people, to control people, to say you can't do this, that you can't own a gun, or that uh, you have to have a license before you can do X. That's the government restricting you or restricting others, depending on how you look at it. And that violence, uh, I don't know. It just maybe hopefully this won't make half of my viewers mad at me. I really don't know the breakdown of the demographics. Maybe it's all men, and nobody will be mad at me. But it's not a matter of if you go back um, to when we started voting, to when we weren't just ruled by the dictate of the crown, and people were voting for MPs over in England several hundred years ago. The the vote was only given to men. It wasn't given to women, and uh, the world was in so many ways such a more honest place back then because they understood that government was violence. They understood that we're going to rule, we're going to impose our will on others, we're going to force them to do things that they don't want to do, we're going to keep them from doing the things that they do want to do. It's a negation of will, that the state negates the will of man. And in so many ways, and so often, that's justified. Uh, a guy might want to kill another person, he might want to steal something, and their will does need to be restrained. Um, it's once you get it, but that's violence, right? Uh, and then there's illegitimate violence where you're having to pay a tax uh, on paper. You have to have a stamp on all the paper, and what no, that's not okay, right? Um, anyway, uh, but the idea is that men voted because men would be the ones to go and fight and die. Um, I don't know if that is a thing. I don't know if other people know that or appreciate that, but that's the reason why uh, men were afforded the ballot and women weren't. And as much as and guys, I don't know. I'm not here saying that we should repeal the is it the 17th Amendment? I don't remember which one it is. That gave women the right to vote. I'm not arguing that we should repeal that. It really doesn't matter because um, just as the numbers play out, women tend to vote about the same as men do. They skew just a touch to the left over the broad demographic, but you know, I don't really think it's enough to make a difference. Anyway, the that's just for the sake of history is all I'm saying. I'm not, like I said, I don't want to repeal that amendment. And I support Jake Merrick. I like Jake Merrick, but he and I differ on one point. He always talks. He has this theme that you are the government, that the legislature answers to you, and I think it's insane. I think it's crazy. They don't answer to you. Uh, there's an election every every couple of years, every 2 years or 4 years, and you stand some kind of a chance to replace that guy with some other guy. But at the end of the day, um, there's the people who rule and the people who are ruled. Uh, the legislature passes the law, and we have to follow the law. And sure, I can appreciate that a sitting congressman is going to get a speeding ticket, uh, regardless. That his position isn't going to make him above the law, but that's an very old idea. That went back to, uh, King John. King John had rules put on him that he had to follow. So going back to the Magna Carta, 810 years ago, at Runnymede, you had kings that were subservient to the law. That no one was above the law as of 1215. Um, but that's a different thing than uh, being the government. We don't we don't get to choose. I don't get to choose in this democracy thing. Um, you know, it's kind of like what Ronald Reagan had to say about capitalism, or maybe he said it about democracy itself, uh, that it's not a great system, but it beats everything else. He said something to that effect, and he's right. He would be right on democracy. Um, what else do we do? Uh, but nevertheless, that doesn't because I have the power to vote doesn't make me part of the government. And even if I am part of the government, my vote is outweighed by all the rest. It makes no difference. Uh, and I'll kind of run through Nozick's idea here. I'll run through Nozick. Robert Nozick was a legal theorist, a philosopher, and contemporary. I mean, he was writing in I think the 60s and 70s, maybe. Um, Certainly not a leftist by any means. He was kind of an anarchist, but maybe I've given away the plot already. Uh, they had this thought experiment, and I'll wrap up with this. Is he said, suppose you're a slave. Suppose that you're a slave. You're born a slave. Um, it doesn't have to be in the American South if that bothers you. It could be in uh, ancient Greece or Rome or anywhere you like. Um, but you're born a slave, and your master is cruel. He's cruel and capricious. He works you hard, and he beats you for no reason at all. And that's how your life begins. But then one day, he says, you know what? I think I've been unjust. From now on, I'm going to write down these rules. I'm going to post them where you can see them. You're going to be able to read, just because. Um, and you can read these rules, and you'll know them. And I'll only beat you if you violate the rules. It's called Hammurabi's Code. Um, and so that goes on, and the beatings become less frequent. You try to obey the law. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get beat. But life goes on. And then he finally comes to you and he says, you know what? Um, and you're not the only slave. There's plenty of other slaves on this farm, as it were. Uh, says, that's what it was. That instead of having you work every day of the week for him, he's going to let you go off 2 days a week, and you can work for yourself. You can have leisure. You can do what you please. If you want to earn your own money, you can. That's fine. But uh, and so that happens. And like I said, there's other slaves on the farm. So the next thing that happens is he finally comes and says, you know what? Instead of me being the only one to write down these rules that you have to follow so that you don't get beaten, what I'll do is I'll let the slaves vote. Not you, because I don't like you, but all the other slaves are going to vote. There's 500 slaves and you, so 501. And whatever they do, those will be the rules. Whatever they decide. But you don't get to vote, and you don't get to speak about it. But then that goes on for a year or so, and the master comes back. He says, "You know what? I'm going to let you speak. You'll be able to go and talk to your fellow slaves and essentially lobby them and argue for this rule to be added or this rule to be taken away, but you still can't vote." Um, and so that goes on for a while. And then there's something else that he decides. He says, "You know what? Um, you don't have to work on my farm anymore. You don't have to do that. You can go out and into the town or the countryside. You can find your own employment. But all I ask is that you send back 5/7 of what you earn comes back to me. Go out there and make as much money as you want, but I get 5/7. And and so that's good, right? Because you can make more money. Uh, that's good. You have some freedom. Uh, and then the next step is that the slave says, you know what? Uh, you've been doing good. What I'll do is I'm going to let you vote, sort of. I'm going to give you a ballot. You're going to fill it out. All the other slaves are going to put their ballot in the box. We're going to hold your ballot. We're not going to look at it. It's not going to go in the box with the others. But if there's a tie, 250 to 250, then we'll open up your ballot and your vote will count. You'll have the deciding vote. All right, great. Well, there's really never any ties, so that doesn't matter. And then lastly, the master comes and he says, um, "You know what? We're just going to put your ballot in with all the other ballots. You get to vote like everybody else, full suffrage, um, and so you vote along with all your fellow slaves." And the question of this thought experiment is, when did when did you stop being a slave? At what phase along the way did you stop being a slave? Um, and if I need to connect the last dot for you, that while it might not be 5/7, and I think in the story it's much lower. I think maybe it's 2/7. Um, at any rate, that this last phase is where we are at today. We're able to vote. We're able to choose the employment we do or where we live. Um, we get to vote on the rules, but one vote never makes a difference. Like statistically, it just doesn't. Um, and so that last step describes the government that we live under today. Um, but we're free. We're not slaves. And So that's Nozick's question is which one of those steps was the transition between being slave and being free? And I'll let you think on that. Maybe give me an answer. Um, Again, I don't know. It's an open question. Um, and thank you for watching. The website again is thealliance.live, and I'm out of here.